The air still smells like fresh-cut lumber and something wild, something clean. But for a while there, it just smelled like her perfume, that choking floral assault weapon, mixed with the acrid scent of fear and diesel fuel. It all started 3 days into building my dream cabin. I was a recently divorced electrician, 45, named Jake Thompson, and I'd just cashed out my 401k to build a simple log home on the 5 acres my Uncle Finn left me up in the Sierra foothills, a place I hoped could convince my 16-year-old daughter, Chloe, that her old man wasn't a complete train wreck. Finn was the family weirdo, always muttering about land having more secrets than trees. But this land, with its granite cliffs and gurgling creek, felt like absolute salvation after the courtroom hell. Then she showed up, Meredith Vance, the Willow Creek Estates HOA Queen Bee, mid-50s. Sharp-shouldered suit, perfectly coiffed, she clicked across my rocky driveway in heels like a corporate predator. I barely had time to put down my circular saw before she started screaming. "You have 24 hours to demolish that eyesore, Mr. Thompson, or we're calling the county sheriff. This violates community standards, and frankly, your rustic approach is a threat to property values." She was waving a clipboard and legal papers, threatening massive fines, acting like she owned the sky above my roofline. I'm standing there smelling pine sap and sweat, and she's radiating this toxic blend of expensive perfume and entitlement. I asked her what community she was talking about, because all I saw was wilderness stretching to the horizon. She slapped down a document. "Your uncle, Silas J. Thompson, signed these covenants 6 months ago when we formed. You inherited his obligations 6 months ago. That's what made my blood go cold. Uncle Finn died 8 months ago. She handed me a cease and desist order, a bill for $2,500 in penalties, and then she delivered the real gut punch." Her eyes swept over my beat-up truck and calloused hands. "Let me be frank, Mr. Thompson. This isn't the type of neighborhood where people in your situation typically thrive. I'd hate for your daughter to be embarrassed by any unpleasantness." She'd researched me, knew about the divorce, the money stress, Chloe, that mention of my kid, that threat. That's when this stopped being about zoning and became a blood feud. She didn't wait 24 hours. She came back the next morning with a greasy, nervous lawyer and slapped me with a claim for $15,000 in retroactive fines. They said because I hadn't received proper HOA disclosure, my ownership claims were voided. 15 grand for building a home on my own land. I told them I'd review their papers with my attorney, and Meredith actually laughed. This short, brittle sound like ice cracking. "You can't afford an attorney, Mr. Thompson. Save yourself the embarrassment." The minute they left, I drove straight to the county recorder's office. I had a hunch. Turns out the Willow Creek HOA was formed exactly 2 months after Finn's death, and the boundaries were drawn like a perfect bullseye around my 5 acres, which, incidentally, made up over 60% of their total land area. It was organized crime with a clipboard. I hired Sarah Chen, a razor-sharp real estate lawyer. Her office smelled like fresh coffee and pure determination. She confirmed it. "You cannot retroactively bind a dead person to new covenants formed after their death." "Jake, this is brazen fraud." We were ready to file countersuits, but Meredith escalated faster than a wildfire. First, the digital warfare. She created a community safety Facebook group, posted my photo, and warned neighbors about a transient criminal threatening children. The comments were poison. Then her arrogance became her downfall. Trying to prove the HOA had legal muscle, she publicly posted their financials. They had collected $847,000 in special assessments over 6 months from 12 houses. $70,000 a family? For what? No amenities, no facilities, just money vanishing into thin air. Sarah nearly choked on her latte. She just publicly admitted to massive financial fraud. We have a federal case, but the nightmare kept getting darker. Meredith had pull with the county planning office. Suddenly I was hit with multiple bogus violation citations that shut down construction. Then the vandalism. Someone baseball batted my lumber pile, diesel fuel soaked my generator, and roofing nails glittered like deadly confetti on my access road. Then came the real low blow, my ex-wife called, voice shaking with rage. "Jake, what the hell is going on? Chloe's friends are showing her Facebook posts calling you a sex offender. She's locked in her room crying, asking if her daddy is really a monster. That was the line. That was the line you do not cross. Threaten my land, fine. Threaten my wallet, whatever. But you weaponize my daughter with a vile, baseless lie? My vision blurred with Arctic rage. This wasn't about property anymore. It was about destroying my family, but desperation breeds stupidity. In her rush, Meredith made two spectacular, traceable mistakes. First, my cameras caught her son, Todd Vance, trying to light my lumber pile on fire at midnight. Felony-level stupidity captured in glorious high definition. Second, to get a SWAT team on my property, she submitted an emergency petition claiming I was mentally unstable and a terrorist, using a psychological evaluation from a Dr. Richard Preston, who had been dead for 6 months. She'd literally forged a medical document using a deceased psychiatrist's stolen letterhead. Federal document forgery. I was playing chess, and she was playing Go Fish. She had no idea I was about to flip the entire board. I walked into the sheriff's office with a USB drive full of arson and wire fraud evidence, but I wasn't done digging. The Willow Creek Estates resort deal had to be the key. Back at the courthouse, Sarah and I confirmed it. Meredith was earning a massive commission for delivering my land to the developers. Every day, I held out cost her hundreds of thousands. That evening, I was cleaning out the old workshop, prying up some dusty floorboards, when my crowbar hit something metallic. Underneath 40 years of sawdust, there was a military green steel lockbox. I cracked the combination. It was Finn's birthday, the old romantic. The musty smell of old, important paper hit me like a wave. Inside were manila folders thick as phone books, corporate seals, and enough legal paperwork to choke a courtroom. But it was the incorporation certificate on top that made my hands shake. Pinecrest Holdings, LLC. Sole proprietor, Finn J. Thompson. Uncle Finn hadn't just owned 5 acres. He'd secretly formed a holding company 27 years ago and used it to quietly acquire something that changed everything. In 2010, when the original developer went bankrupt, Finn stepped in like a ghost and bought up all the defaulted mortgage debt for pennies on the dollar. Not the houses, the actual land underneath them. Every single house in Meredith's precious HOA kingdom was built on land that Finn's company owned. The homeowners, including Meredith Vance, had been paying their mortgages faithfully for over a decade, thinking they owned their land. But legally, they were tenants. Every monthly payment was just rent, forwarded through a management company straight to Finn's accounts. I was holding the deed to an entire neighborhood. And Meredith Vance, the queen bee who was threatening my life and my family, was 3 months behind on her own rent to me. I sat in that dusty workshop, the scent of old motor oil and forgotten secrets heavy in the air, and I felt the weight of that power. The power to destroy lives the same way she had tried to destroy mine. But Finn's last words echoed in my head. Don't let anyone push you around. He hadn't said push back harder. He said don't let them push you around. There was a difference. Sarah, looking at the documents, just breathed. Jake, this is legally bulletproof. Your uncle was meticulous. We crafted a plan. Not Plan A, reveal and negotiate. Not Plan B, selective eviction. Not Plan C, full nuclear exposure. Plan D, use the leverage to build something better. We'd expose the financial fraud and the lies, but offer the innocent neighbors a way forward. Reduced rents, actual ownership opportunities. Turn this toxic HOA into a real community. The community meeting was set for Friday night. Meredith had called it as an emergency session to address the dangerous individual threatening our neighborhood. She had no idea she was providing the perfect stage for her own. Spectacular downfall Friday night. The Willow Creek Community Center was packed. News cameras lined the walls. Meredith stood at the podium, dressed for a victory speech, perfect makeup, her voice rising with righteous indignation. We gather tonight to address the clear and present danger that Jake Thompson represents to our peaceful community. She clicked through a PowerPoint of manipulated images, screenshots of my menacing construction project, and charts showing declining property values. She ended by tearfully accusing me of filing false terror reports and owing $97,000 in fines. Does anyone else have concerns about this dangerous individual threatening our community? She asked, triumphant. I stood up slowly from the back row, my leather document folder tucked under one arm. I do, actually. Meredith's confident smile faltered. You're not a member of this community. You have no right to speak here. Actually, Meredith, I said, walking calmly toward the front, I think you'll find I have every right to speak. In fact, I have more rights in this room than anyone else. The room went silent, a nervous, confused murmur running through the crowd. Meredith's face was turning the color of old cement. My name is Jake Thompson, I announced to the room, placing my hands on the podium. And I'm the sole owner of Pinecrest Holdings, LLC. I opened my folder and removed Finn's Incorporation documents, holding them high enough for the cameras to capture, which means I'm the legal landlord of every single house in this subdivision. The explosion of gasps and shouts was instant, absolute chaos. Meredith lunged for the papers like a drowning woman. That's impossible! This is our neighborhood. We own these homes. You own the structures, Meredith, I corrected, my voice calm but carrying authority. But the land underneath? That belongs to me. Has for 27 years, through my uncle's holding company. I spread the property deeds across the podium. Every single mortgage payment you've all been making, it was rent, forwarded to my company. And every HOA fee you've been collecting, you've been stealing money from people for managing land you don't own. Sheriff Reynolds, who had arrived to observe the terrorist standoff, stepped forward, his face grim. Mrs. Vance, you've been collecting association fees on property that belongs to Mr. Thompson. Meredith's mask finally shattered. You can't do this! I spent years building this community. You're just some drifter who doesn't belong here. Actually, I said, pulling out the rent records, you're 3 months behind on your own rent, which means I have legal grounds to evict you with 30 days' notice. The room erupted again. Meredith screamed about property rights until Sheriff Reynolds was forced to restrain her. Federal agents, who had been waiting outside for the financial fraud warrants to clear, entered the room and placed her under arrest for wire fraud and document forgery. But as the sirens wailed, I raised my voice over the chaos. I'm not here for revenge. Those of you who actively participated in her harassment campaigns have 30 days to find new housing. Everyone else? Your rent just got cut in half, and we're building a real community together. 3 months later, I was sitting on my finished cabin porch, the air smelling like pine and honest work, watching neighborhood kids, including Chloe, play safely in what used to be Meredith's restricted common area. Chloe had just arrived for the weekend, beaming. Dad, I got into state with a full scholarship. And you know what the committee loved? My essay about how my father taught me that real strength isn't about getting revenge. It's about building something better. Meredith Vance was serving 18 months in federal prison and paying restitution. The remaining 41 neighbors had embraced the community transformation with an enthusiasm that surprised me. Our professional partnership, Sarah and I, had blossomed into something more, built on mutual respect and shared victory. We even started the Finn Thompson Community Justice Fund, with the money recovered from Meredith's fraud, providing free legal aid for families fighting corrupt HOAs across 3 states. The sweetest victory is seeing those kids play, seeing neighbors bring each other casseroles, not citations. Turns out people pay premium prices to live where neighbors help instead of harass each other. But the fight isn't over. Sarah handed me a thick envelope postmarked from Oregon. That family I mentioned, they heard about our victory. City Council is trying to condemn their century-old farm for an Amazon warehouse, using the same bogus community benefit arguments Meredith used for her resort deal. I opened the envelope, breathing in the scent of hope and a new challenge. Ready for your old man to take on City Hall next, sweetie? Chloe grinned, all mischief and fierce pride. Let's do it, Dad. But this time I want to help with the legal research. Sometimes, the strongest people aren't the ones who create the biggest sparks, but the ones who deliver exactly the right amount of current to get the job done. The question is, what would you have done if you suddenly found yourself controlling the fate of every person who tried to ruin you? Would you have chosen justice, or would you have chosen revenge? Drop a comment below. Tell me where you draw the line between right and wrong when the tables finally turn. And if this story resonated, hit that subscribe button, because next week we're taking on City Hall, and they have no idea about Great-Grandpa Finn's old mining claims.